Good morning and welcome to our quilt cards class. This is session 1, and I always like to come on a minute or two early and make sure I'm in the right spot. Classes are a little different from other lives, so we kind of chatter around. If you come back to watch the replay, you can always just go forward to see what we're making. Thanks to Nar, she's putting up the supply lists early and taking care of all that. So that's good, because one more thing off my plate here. Just with my long list of things to do. I don't do well with that. Do you guys? I said, I'm so scattered. Well, wonderful. I see Jean and a whole bunch of Facebook users. So when I go back to read comments, then I'll see all your names. We never have been able to figure out how this works really well, but it actually looks like a promising day here. It looks sunny out. So I will take a break and go out a bit this afternoon. Well, good. And we have Connie and Julie. So Julie Heights was on here, is the chirpy quilt card maker. I might have that wrong, but a bunch of you follow her. I'm going to encourage everyone to follow her. And she does the most amazing quilt card of the month kind of thing, card kit you can get. And I have no idea how much of what I'm doing today overlaps with what she does, because, we all just kind of do our own thing. So you guys will tell me. I know that. So I love it. So a big shout out to Julie. And I just, these are just ideas that I've come up with. And I just love the idea of quilt cards. I've made quilt cards forever. I remember, Julie, early on, we had a conversation with you, and I said, when you were a quilter, I said, oh, go with the whole quilt card theme. I just think it's so fun working with color and design. And I am a quilter. So I put a question up to ask who here was a quilter or knows a good quilter. Because I just think one of the best gifts you can give a quilting friend is a set of quilt cards, so we're going to have a bunch of those. So and I think even for non-quilters, it doesn't matter. Quilts speak comfort, tradition. You can go with really vintage looks. You can go with the very modern looks. You can do anything with solid, bright papers. You can go with a more Amish look. I just love the diversity of looks that we can get just with such an easy creativity. Let's see. And, and I also think making quilt cards, I love what somebody's saying. She's excited to make quilter cards because she doesn't think she's ever made them. It's also, yes, a fun way to introduce people that do quilting with cards. I have always likened the two, because with card making, we are also working with color, design, all the same things, like going to the quilt store, a fabric store. I remember being young and going to fabric stores and just being overwhelmed, but also loving laying out things to make quilts. And then it's the same. You lay out your designer series paper when you're making cards and your other colors. And it's all that same kind of thing. The contrast for me is that I used to make a quilt a year. I'd spend all winter hand quilting it, and I'd piece it by machine. And then with cards, I can make a bunch in a day. So I love the fast and the slow, but there's so many similarities to it. So anyway, so it's all wonderful. Okay, listening while I work. Ooh, that sounds good. So you can just listen to the conversation. And I don't ever want to be in a rush in these, but you guys know that I speed through life. I speed through everything. So just comment if you have questions, and I'll try to catch them, or I come back. Leslie said she's made one quilt, but she's not good enough to say she's a quilter. Yes, you are. You've made a quilt. You've made a quilt blog. You're a quilter. I said we're all at different levels of that, just like we are card making. It's all that creative part. So, and of course, I don't know when to stop. I always just put too many ideas in here. So we have this divided into 3 sessions. And this first session is going to be 3 different styles, just using squares. Okay, so I think we're ready to get started. Cards do finish much faster, you're right, but the similarities are so fun. So anyway, combining both worlds is just wonderful. So we will get started. And the first thing, this is what we did last Thursday. So I usually do some kind of a preview that kind of brings you into the class. So this is the one we did last Thursday. And oh my goodness, in the back porch stampers, you guys, there are so many gorgeous pinwheel cards like this. So if you posted one there, post it again here, because this class is all about sharing our ideas. So first we're going to look at the different ones. So we're going to make one of these again as a review. I always put this in and then we expand from there. So this is one of the new colors. Oh, and this was just showing. This is just done plain. This one's done at an angle, which is really fun. And this went through an embossing folder. Sometimes it's hard to tell on the camera. So it has a more quilted look, which is always an option to do with your quilts. But I really like that they look different like that. And here's some other new paper with the birthday things. Oh, here's two out of those papers too. And just look how fun they are just to be different. This one stands out with the more contrasting at the end. This blends in a little more, and they're both just really fun. And another, oh, these both are with the new sunflower paper. So this is just really totally different color combinations, but I think they're really fun. Someone else actually tried to quilt, but it took too long. Cards are faster. I actually taught my kids. I have a whole video series I did on that. I don't remember what I did, but I had my kids design 9-patch quilts, and then I made them into quilts. They designed it on graph paper. You know, you can do that same kind of thing with card designs. And then I turned them into quilt squares for them. But it was really fun for them to see how you can design something and then they pick the fabric, and then I sewed them. But again, look at all these are fun. And then this, I guess, how about that? Those two are totally the same. So it must be one I actually demoed. And then this was an idea where you can just add your stitching around the edge to have anything more hand stitched. So we are going to make one first. The folder on that was actually, wasn't a folder. It was the, I'm sure Julie would know. What is it? The evergreen, stitched evergreen. So it had the stitching. But I have used a bunch of the folders. I think anything that appeals to you actually works. It just kind of gives that added texture. So this is what I'm going to show. So on these, so, you know, you will have the PDFs that you can print out that have everything. And first I put the supply list. So the only parts I'm going to cover when we're on live, I thought it was helpful just to show the parts that actually make the quilt. So I have 2 2 5/8 inch squares. And then I have 8 1 1/4 inch squares for each of 2 designs. And then we made this graph. By putting this in, I will keep this in my file, so I will have it anytime I want to make these. So to make this, I just evened this up. And I just use this as a center point, but it doesn't make any difference, however you want to count. And any kind of graph paper, if you don't have graph paper, you could just measure out on paper. It's just to get it all measured. Once it's done, I just think it's really helpful to have templates. And then I'm not going to be ever really perfect about this, but it just makes it go faster. So instead of, let's say if this is blank like that, and I'm taking this every which way, and I'm trying to eyeball to get them straight. So I showed one that I'd eyeballed and it wasn't straight at all. Maybe that was this one. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Here's the difference. Okay, I knew there was a reason that I had this. But I have to find the one that is like this. Well, we'll just use this one. If I put my ruler, I don't have a ruler, but I have this long thing. Do you see how this isn't lined up at all? If I put that, these are straight and those are straight going across. This is all cattywampus. If I put them on, it's all every which way. And you don't really notice it, you know, because I'm pointing it out, you're going to notice it. But if you don't like that, then this is a good way to do that. But I'm also going to say, you know, we're not about being perfect either. So it's all. Yes, square punches could make the size squares. And of course, you can use different size squares too. I could go smaller or bigger. It's just going to change. I'm only giving one measurement, and then you're welcome to change things around because we can make things always bigger or smaller. So what I like about this more than anything is that it's fast. So if I want to make a dozen of these cards, I can just lay this up and do it, and it's going to be good enough. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it's just done. And I'm not sitting there looking, okay, this, yes, is so much easier. Oh, I love that Leslie made a memory quilt for a daughter with her children's clothes and scraps. See, that's so meaningful. I love that. And then we're going to just take the squares and put them all around this. So the most important thing on the first square, you're only putting adhesive on the right, only on one side. And then I want to be able to tuck in under here. So I'm going to put my sticky side up here so that this will peel back. Does that make sense? Okay. And then I'm going to, and you know what? I'm going to just put a whole bunch of tape on the rest of these so they're all ready to go. Turn them all over. I love using my silicone mat. And of course, it doesn't matter what you're using for adhesive. I really am still working. I'm trying to get used to the multi-purpose glue because I think it's awesome and it's cheap, but I really like to just roll my tape. Okay, so now I'm going to just follow. Here is my next one. I'm putting it just, you just barely see a little bit of the trim around here. And then I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to go all the way around. So how many of you, who has not made one of these yet? That might be a better question since we did this last week. And I know some of you, many of you follow me on those shows, but I'm sure some of you don't. Some of you haven't gotten around to doing it yet. No, life is just busy, but yeah, someone said their thing is frozen. If you ever have computer issues, just have to say that, go out, come back in, and usually replays work. But it is. So this is where it's going to end up. The last one is the trick. So you can see, here's why I didn't want tape right here. Because I'm going to take the 8th square and tuck that in. And so you just see a little bit, again, right there. How cool is that? And there is my square. Oh, I haven't had time yet, so that's all right. Okay. Oh, that's a really good idea. Someone said she puts clear contact paper over the template. That is a great idea. And then that is saved. You know what else? It would also stick out of your folder. I mean, you'd notice it because it has the contact paper because it's a template. So if you put it in with the other instructions, it'd be easy to find. I love that idea. Fabulous. And then on this one, I just added a little center thing. You know, sometimes we use buttons, sometimes we use little circles or gems, anything at all. But for this one, I just decided the paper just had those cute little things. And okay. And then it's just to put it on the paper. And so I'm doing this one like the other one. But if you noticed, a whole lot of the ones I did here, they just have words. It doesn't get any easier than that. Look at that. On this one, I actually added some of the paper. So let's see if we did that one that way. Let's put this one on this way. Oh, and I can add a little tape under here because see, that one doesn't have. Okay, so let's do this one. I just love that you can make all these little changes on things. Okay. Then we'll make this one cattywampus. Okay. So I just love that. And then I just put, I'm not going to finish this, but you can see I just put the words. I just cut that and put the words on there. But I thought, what a fun card. So all of these, look at this whole stack of cards I have now to send out. So these work up really, really quickly. I have done these on Thursdays before, if you're wondering about this. And we've probably done them in an older All Good Cards Club. This is a standard. I have used this for many, many years. I probably have several videos. I should go check on YouTube using, I don't know, but you know, ideas keep coming around. And when you change your paper, you totally change your look. So I thought this is a really good starter basis for a quilt card class. Next, we're going to take the idea of the squares. And okay, I just have to find, now one of you might know, Julie or somebody else, there might be names for some of these things, but I have no idea. Look at this cool idea. And I think what's really fun, let's find something that's a little similar look so it stands out. Notice, doesn't this look like a quilt square too? And now I did not run this through an embossing folder, but doing it would add texture. I'm not doing that because I'm not going to put out my machine and do it. But I think this next one I will run through before I attach it to the card. We're going to focus on making the blocks. But notice how this one just has 4 squares instead of 8, but it's still kind of making a pinwheel. This looks to me like it must be named something block, but I have no idea. And then, oh, Julie said this is a card trick pattern. Oh, I have it written down. This isn't the one I was struggling with. It says, yes, it's a card trick block card with tucked in squares. That's what I called it. That's what I named it right here. So I did find that was, but I just thought this is such a fun idea. So with this one, the quilt part, like I said, we're not going to worry about the base cards are just, the base cards we're using are all half a sheet of cardstock, and then you can just layer whatever you want. So the part for the quilt is 3.5 inches square. And then we have 4 that are 1.5 inch square. And this would be another fun, if you have trouble with fine motor, we're going to do another card later that we're going to do a little bigger, which is also another idea, because sometimes oversized cards are so fun to give. And especially if you're doing something in person, but just know if you think these are a little hard to work with, you can use larger squares. And this just depends on what you're going to do here. So even for your prototype, sometimes it's easier just to use larger squares just to get it figured out. So this is like fine motor test today. So we're going to take each of these squares and fold them in half. So if you have your squares out, then this is easy. Just follow along with me. Oh, someone made the card trick blocks into a quilt for a granddaughter. She loved it. Think how fun it would be. So if this is a card trick quilt pattern, just think for a quilter. If you're a quilter and you're making it for a gift, then you can make a card to match. I just think about how fun is that. So this is just like everything we're doing today is just really easy. We're not doing a whole bunch of cutting little pieces and putting in. We're just doing this. So we have all these done in half. That could be another quilt class, So I said we just love possibilities. Then we're going to open up each one and do it the other way. Okay, who's doing this along with me? I debated on the supply list whether it'd be easier just to put out the quilt part of the pattern, but then I don't know, we never know. But anyway, this is the main part. Okay, so now we have split each of these into 4 squares. Let's see, I was going to find and then check this out. All we're going to do, well, I'm not going to do it on there. I'm going to look for, I'll take some, I was wondering if I had any piece of white paper here. Let's try this. I have no idea what's in the back of this, but we'll do this. Okay. Because it might be easier to see. Now what's really cool, I am going to take, when I build this, do you see how this corner square is going to go on top of this corner square? This is how I'm going to know how they attach. That's why we're doing the fold lines. So instead of measuring and trying to get them all lined up, I think this is just really a cool idea. Yeah, France likes to watch and make cards first. That's probably what I would do. I'm kind of more of a, so I'm going to just do this, and I'm going to attach this right here. So this will be pretty, see how well I can do this when we're watching. And then we're going to do the same thing here. And I think this is really fun. Let's see, that's not totally square. We'll get that. And you can see if you're watching me, I think most of you are, but you can see we're using a bigger piece to start with, might be easier. So always just feel free to do that. And then you can see this is going to just fit in just like the other. We're going to be tucking it in like that. And you guys, this is it. Here is our quilt. So that's going to go on there. And then this one, we'll just put a little tape there to hold that. There is my quilt pattern. So how cool is that? So now I could do it like this. We'll do this one this way. And see, I put this one on going this way. So we'll put this one on. Going this way. And I can see a couple of these should be a little straighter, but that's okay. I can easily switch that. It's just a little hard to see. I probably should have a pattern that showed a little better. But how cool is that? Put it in the middle. And this is another super, super easy. Yeah, aren't these colors fun? Julie, see those colors? Yeah, I think those colors are just really fun together. And I just put in the little flower in the middle. And I'm so lucky to have you call you friend. But then again, these are just layers. So I'm drawing from these colors. We've got, I love these colors. These are the in colors carrying over from last year. So we have Parakeet Party, Tahitian Tide, and Starry Sky. And I think And then this is the paper that's retiring, but there will be new paper in colors. But I think these make really pretty quilts. I love these little flowers. Okay, so does that one make sense? Oh, someone says you could do 6 blocks and put it on a rectangle. Yes, you could. I think for a quilter, and I often think of people like in nursing homes and things, that because we often do cards for somebody older, for someone who maybe was a quilter. Like I know my mom loves getting any sunbonnet type cards. She wasn't a quilter, but she used to stitch dish towels, and sunbonnet kids were her favorite. Plus her mom had made her a sunbonnet quilt. But you could do something like this kind of as a memory thing and make an oversized card to sit, it's just that reminder of what they did and what you remember them for. And, or if their moms, whatever, it's just kind of that nostalgia thing. But I just think that is a really cool idea. Okay, show this again. I will just show here. I didn't have any more of that particular color, but I did have more of these. So if you remember, I'll just put this part together again. We took each of our 4 squares and turned them into 4s by going in half and then going half. I had my silicone mat. You guys saw me use it. Where do things disappear when we're still right in front of them? It disappeared on me. So I'll just be careful here. So each of these has 4 sections. And then all I am going to do is put a little tape on 1/4, and I'm going to take the next and I'm going to match up 1/4. I just find it a lot easier to do when I'm not on camera, because see, if I'm trying to match it, I can even fold it over and make sure. Okay, good. That's good. That's why I did my folding instead of marking. You could do a template for this too. So there's a lot of ways you could do this, but this is just another alternative because, we like exploring ideas. That's kind of, and then I'm going to do the next. So let's see if I can get that one good. And yeah, and that'll be butted up right there. Okay, so that's right there. And so I'm just putting adhesive on the inside part. So it's got the 4 parts right here. So how cool is this? And then my last one, we'll just need a little adhesive there. So if you need to see it again, now you can come back and watch it again, but then you can put it on like this. And I think that'd be really easy. That would be really lovely to have several of these and to continue like a 6 block. So if you're good at fine motor, you can go with smaller squares or you can go with larger and make an oversized cards. Okay, does that make sense? Did you put glue on the top? I just put glue on all these 4 corners. So see, and this doesn't have any glue, but it doesn't need it here, but it's just the 4 corners are glued because that's going to all be glued onto something else now. So does that make sense? Okay, and we're ready to go on to our third one with squares. So these are all using squares. And our next one, we're going to layer squares of different sizes. So this is the card we're going to make. And I thought, again, isn't this pretty? Now I think, and this I did put through, this is the stitch greenery too, but anything that goes through, here's another one. So I have 2 of these, and this went through, this was actually through that, the one that came out, it's that more masculine look. Oh, look, it still works for a quilt card. The one that came out with the motorcycle, whatever that one is. So really just play around and use anything. And again, I think, these look so different from each other, and yet it's the same pattern. So you could just make this variety of things. I think this would be a really pretty card to do in all solids. So just a lot of things we can do on that. So this is another one where I just have my different sizes. So these are my sizes of squares. And of course, they're all in the thing. And all we are going to do is start assembling them. I'm going to put this one kitty corner. Oh, and I should have done a template for this one. I didn't, but I'm not going to. Anytime, if you care, you could measure things out. But you know what? I'm not caring. This is, I love Crazy Quilt. I have a framed part of a Crazy Quilt that my great grandmother would have done. And I just love how they fit in all kinds of different sizes. And oh, I just love that. Okay, and then I'm going to put this one on, going this way. So this time we're just eyeballing it. And then I'm taking my little square. Okay, so we could go on and on with this idea, but this is just one example. How fun is that? The metal plate, thank you, embossing folder, that's what it was. And I wouldn't think of that as a quilting, but I think that is so pretty. And then that is just put on a card base. So here I have my pieces. And so we have our half a sheet of cardstock, and then we go down 1/4 inch. So we have 4 inches by 5 1/4. And then this is going on top. This is a 3 3/4 inch square. And, you know, if you're playing with patterns like this, you can just cut your square. And you know what I did? I just trimmed off a little if it didn't quite fit. And, you know, if you look closely, these go off a teeny bit, but I didn't want to do 1/8 inches. So I made my pattern to be whatever. So you get a lot of leeway, just like when you're quilting, you know, you just kind of tuck in those little things. So yeah, and it really, really adds. You know, I think this is a pretty card, but it doesn't look nearly as much like a quilt card as when it is run through some kind of an embossing. So, but either way works. And so you can take this same idea and do all kinds of patterns. Square in a square, yes, is so much easier, this is from Julie, than cutting all those half square triangles. Yes, it's the shortcuts. Because if you look at this, if we were really making this in all the pieces, these would be squares cut in half. See, these would be squares cut in half. We'd be layering out all these pieces to go in, which is what we do if we were actually quilting. We're getting a quilt look just by layering the squares. So hopefully that makes sense. The next session we're doing, I think, is the one using strips. I don't remember, but anyway, we have 2 more sessions to go, but we're kind of organizing them about this. So you'll notice all of these cards were done with squares. And I just think that's really fun. So this one's using 8 going around. This one's using 4. And this one's using different sizes. But you see, they all have the theme of just using squares. Very simple, not cutting them apart to make anything. They just are the squares. Julie is the queen of half square triangles. Perfect. Love that. So this is really fun. This is our first session. All of these cards we're making today are really easy if you have your paper cut, but they all look, you know, by the end of the time, you're just going to have the display of cards that just look so fun and different. So thanks. We will be back at 1 o'clock. So enjoy. If you're crafting today, we can't wait to see your things. If you're crafting anytime this week, you're going to put them up, because I know some of you are working today and are going to catch this on the replay. And regardless, we just love having you here. So, and all of these cards, yes, it's a comment that they look easier than they thought. And I thought, if you're not a card maker, or, you know, you would look at these. Well, even if you're a card maker, you might look at these and think, oh, she spent forever on those. And look how easy they are. I just love that about making cards that are stunning and look way more complicated than they are. Okay, see you back here at 1. And thanks, everyone.